What happens if I die? What happens to my pension fund? It is a very, very common question, and obviously a very sensible question to ask. So I thought it would be very helpful to take you through what happens to the assets and everything inside SSAS when a member dies. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I think this is when SSAS actually comes into its own, and it makes it the standout pension scheme in the UK compared to all the other types of pensions. It's worth understanding this position in a bit of detail before we get into the drawing. So if you have a final salary pension scheme, sometimes known as defined benefit, usually the rules in defined benefit final salary type schemes, so civil service, teacher scheme, nurse, NHS scheme typically, the way they are constructed is on the member's death, there may be an amount left to a surviving spouse, and if the surviving spouse then dies, there may be an option to potentially pass some of the benefit to children if they're under the age of 22 typically. But you find with defined benefit schemes, final salary schemes as I say, then quite often the value of the pension scheme dies with the member or dies with the member's spouse. So potentially you could build up a huge sum inside final salary and you lose it all on first or second death, which is not particularly attractive. The alternative to defined benefit is obviously defined contribution, which is where SSAS sits. It's where SIP sits and personal pensions all sit nest. One of the attractions of having a defined contribution type scheme is that on your death, those funds have to be passed or should be passed on to your beneficiaries. But how the mechanics of that work, it differs between SIP and say SSAS. If you have a personal pension structure, a SIP structure, and you die, that structure has to be wound up within 2 years of your death. So the money, the assets have to go somewhere, which just, I think, adds an additional complication for the beneficiaries at a time when they're probably already grieving for the death of the member, and is often a time when you don't want to start thinking about these decisions and having to make these decisions when somebody's just passed away. But I think SSAS gets around that issue. So if we have a look at this now, and also this will illustrate why we think that SSAS is very much a wealth cascading vehicle, as you will see. So if we get into the basics of SSAS, as usual, you have the limited company that probably originally set up the SSAS. So we have the SSAS as a box. And you probably started off originally, let's say, with the husband and the wife would be the ideal scenario. And over time, you may have also added in your children. So kids, and there would obviously be adult children, assuming, well, I hope you're going to die at a ripe old age, of course. And what you will have done over time is you would have clearly built up value inside your pension. And particularly if you've got SSAS, hopefully you've probably got commercial property in there. A lot of our clients do. So you'll have a mixture of assets. Could be you'll have stocks and shares, you'll have commercial property, gold, deposit accounts, a whole range of things that are in here. So when we are running SSAS, we know what value is attributable to each member based on their original contributions and any transfers that have come in. And then obviously profits on investments are distributed pro rata to these original contributions and transfers. So if we just take this example here, let us say that the value attributable to the husband is, let's say, £1 million. And it could be that his wife's value is also £1 million. And perhaps the children haven't put anything in and therefore they stand at zero. So I'm always going to kill off the husband first. The men just go first, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. So we always kill off the husband first. So the husband dies, he must leave, and every member must leave what's known as a letter of wishes. This directs the trustees as to how this £1 million is to be distributed amongst his beneficiaries. Now, for this purpose, I'm going to assume that his beneficiaries are his wife and children. And this is the beauty of SSAS. One, we don't have to wind the SSAS up. It can continue on. SSAS has a lifespan of 125 years, so it can carry on probably way beyond the death of the original member. So he would leave a letter of wishes, and in this example, he might say, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave value. So this is a value shift that we do inside the SSAS. He might say, I'm leaving £500,000 of value to my wife, but actually, because she's got a good pot and they've probably got other assets, savings, houses and all the rest of it, I'm actually going to give my kids £250,000 of value each. So you've immediately put, in this example, £250,000 into each of the children's pensions pots. Now with death, it's very specific. When you get a death bequest passed to a beneficiary, we have to ring fence this from any contributions that the children, or say in this case the wife, may have made. So that 500 is kept separate from her £1 million, which is contributions and transfers and profit. So these are very distinct pots inside each member's benefit section. And there's a reason why we have to keep those separate. Again, the wife will leave a letter of wishes and say, you know, my £1.5 million or whatever the value is, I would leave to my children. Then she would pass it on potentially to the children in probably equal measure or whatever. The interesting aspect for the children receiving these funds is because they are a death bequest, they do not have to wait to retirement age to take the money out. So they may take funds any age. That is a big bonus, particularly if your children are a bit younger, that they then have access to capital. So you need to be aware of that if you're going to leave them some money inside your pension. They don't have to wait to what will be age 57 from 2028 to take the money out, because this is a death bequest. Now you can see why we keep it separate, because if they put contributions in, they can't touch those contributions until they reach the age of 57 currently. So that is the why we keep it separate. So you can see that this is a tremendous way of cascading wealth. But added to that, because we've just done a value shift around inside the SSAS, we haven't had to sell or dispose of any of the assets held in the pension scheme. We started off with 4 owning members. We've now got 3. The commercial property, let's say, is still in there. The rent is hopefully still coming in, but the rent is now just passed to the other 3 members. So if we had rent coming in prior to this member's death, we may have just split the rent 50-50 between him and his wife. But because he's now gone, he's died. Sorry, Dad, you've gone. He's out of the picture. The rent now coming in would get split 50% to the wife as before, but obviously the 2 children would now be entitled to 25% of the rent and any other profits coming in as well. So by passing the children, in this instance, a proportion of the money on death, you are giving them a fantastic gift for the rest of their life. If they've got any sense, they'll leave the money in the pension, because don't forget, this is all tax-free growth. So you have got no IHT, which is a big thing with this. There's no danger in this case of the funds leaking out of the pension scheme, which you might get with, say, SIP or personal pensions, because they have to be wound up, the money has to be sent somewhere. In this case, the money doesn't have to be sent anywhere. So we're literally just cascading the wealth inside the SSAS. We keep it in the box. The box is inheritance tax exempt, so there is no danger of these funds leaking into your wife's or your children's estate. So definitely keep it out of inheritance tax. Don't forget as well, you have got tax-free growth on the investments. Why would you want to take money out of pension and put it into your bank account to then pay tax on the returns? Keep it in the box, is what I say to all my clients. You're getting tax-free growth on the money. In addition to that, and what's become a big one, you also have no CGT on the assets held inside the pension scheme. It's one of the things that I have with SIPs, because if SIP's holding commercial property, which it can do, and the member dies, that commercial property has to be sent somewhere. So it would have to either be sent to another SIP or SIPs or a SAS. And you can see there is a danger that people may just then decide to sell the property or keep the property, not put it back in pension. You're then exposing it to all of the taxes, IHT, CGT, and tax on the rent, which is just not what you want at these difficult times. So you can see, hopefully, how SSAS creates a death planning order for you long before you die. You can really line this up to handle your affairs in a slick and efficient manner and know that the people who you want to benefit will be your beneficiaries inside the pension scheme. Because believe it or not, the letter of wishes that you leave the trustees, which is the direction, the trustees, they're not obliged to follow it, but it's very unusual for them not to follow the letter of wishes. That letter of wishes is prescriptive, directs what is to happen, and it's not possible to challenge it really, unlike a will which can be challenged. So you find the letter of wishes here is actually stronger than someone's will in terms of challenge. Make your beneficiaries your biggest beneficiaries and not the Inland Revenue. This is absolutely when SSAS comes into its own, and it's certainly on death, unfortunately.
Book a call with us via the link in the description below. If on a mobile device, simply hit the More button under the video title and pick a convenient time to speak. Feel free to share this video with others that may benefit on WhatsApp or in other online groups or channels. Like, subscribe and hit the notification bell for lots more SSAS related content, and leave a comment if you found this video helpful. For more, visit onecrownpensions.com.